Hello everyone, here we have again Olakin's fantastic website, Star Citizen Chips Performances Viewer. Link to this is my first pinned comment below. In 4.9 CIG nerfed penetration distance, near radius and far radius of almost every shipped weapon in the game. And some weapons got an extra nerf, for example Deadbolt 1, 2 and 3 cannons are doing now much less damage. Deadbolt 1 minus 41, Deadbolt 2 minus 54, Deadbolt 3 minus 51% damage. Same thing with ballistic repeaters, size 1 ballistic repeaters minus 50%, size 2 minus 56%, size 3 minus 44% damage. On Shadowmose's Discord, Montic CIG tried to justify this. I read this before, I won't read it again, just some highlights. The weapons that were tweaked were those performing too effectively compared to the rest of the pool. This was not the intended design from the outset. Mr. Montic CIG, a 50% damage nerf is not a tweak, this is just mindlessly using a nerf pad and slapping the thing. This is not a personal attack against Montic CIG, I'm sure he does his best, but this shows that you cannot run a studio and pay below industry standard. You don't get good people that way. Montic CIG certainly does not understand the game. He does not understand the complex interaction between shields, armor, damage reduction. All people like Montic CIG seem to do is, they have an Excel sheet and have a pivot table and just look what weapons are used the most, and then they are nerfing the weapons that are used most to the ground. I guess Montic CIG saw in his pivot table that no one is using C-788 cannons anymore. Why is this? In the past, C-788 cannons had a small area of effect damage long before we had penetration damage and cones. You were able to hit and damage components through full shields with this weapon. Here's a video I did with Flickr in February 2023. Flickr has now a C-788 Behring gun. You want to see if this gun does component damage through shields, which it did in the past. Flickr is now aiming at shield generators. Okay, one shot please. Shields 99. Yeah, I took component damage. Power plant 98. Coolers 99, 99. Missile rack 99. All stops 96 and 96. Behring C-788 gun has an area of effect damage radius, so you are damaging quite a lot of components at once. Yeah, you can see shields are pretty much still full, but we took component damage. I guess too many people used Behring C-788 cannon and CIG nerfed it. They took away the area of effect damage radius and later they nerfed its damage to the ground. And of course, not many people were using this weapon anymore. Montic CIG saw this in his pivot table and Behring C-788 guns got a massive damage boost. From 325 to 1090 damage, 3.35 times. I'm sure Montic CIG calls this a tweak too. In my opinion, if you're doing something like this, it means you don't understand your own game. You have no idea where those numbers are coming from, and you are just wildly changing numbers, hoping more people will now use the Behring C-788 cannon. It would help a lot if CIG devs would actually understand their game and make decisions that are not just rolling dice. Another thing CIG did in 4.9, they massively increased the damage of the Scourge Railgun. Damage per shot went from 9,000 to 24,000 damage. 2.7 times the damage. I guess CIG devs will call this a tweak too. By the way, if you have a railgun laying around and don't mind gifting it to me, I would be very happy to get it and to do some tests again. I asked the same question a while ago and I didn't do any tests, mea culpa. I was just not in the mood, but now I am in the mood. So if you have one laying around, please let me know. My thoughts? Star Citizen is a very complex game and got a lot more complex recently with penetration cones, far and near radius and with threshold damage. We also have things like physical shield penetration. I'm not sure if this is a correct route to go. I had no trouble with how shields, high damage weapons worked before 3.0. It was fine. But now it's getting more and more complex and even CRT devs don't understand it anymore. Complexity for the sole purpose to be complex is not a good idea. A game can have simpler rules and still be a lot of fun. Balancing is getting worse and worse each patch. Balance back in 2.6 was far better than balance we have today. It was not perfect back in 2.6, but it was manageable, and now we have just total chaos. CRT devs are just looking at Excel pivot tables and nerf the thing that is used the most. This is a very simple approach and does not work in a game as complex as Star Citizen is. You need to understand the game. You need to understand shields, armor, damage reduction, penetration, cone damage. Maybe we don't need all this complexity and we should go back to the older, much simpler damage model, much simpler guns, much simpler shields and armor. I had fun back in 2.6. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen. Now I'm trying to eat a sandwich. Eat. He injected a sandwich. He injected it. He used it like a syringe. Hey, you're still here. You might want to join me on Twitter or on Blue Sky.